looked in the mirror and wondered, who am I now? If so, you're not alone. Many women especially, men do it too, but women especially experience a very strong midlife identity crisis. They feel like they've lost themselves somewhere along the way. As we go through all these life changes of kids leaving home and career shifts, relationship challenges, it can leave you questioning everything and unsure of where you belong or who you're even meant to be. If you've been asking yourself, what do I do when I feel lost in my life? You're in the right place. I've got 3 unconventional, or at least rarely ever talked about things that you can do to deal with that question. This is a moment of uncertainty. It's not the end of your story, and nor does it mean that if you're in this place that you're a failure. It happens to a lot of us, and it just means that you're at the perfect point to rediscover yourself and create a life that aligns with who you truly are. If you want to get a jump start in that process, check out the links below this video in the description and grab my free guide called 10 Simple Ways to Build Confidence and Love Yourself a little bit more every day. Before we figure out what to do about this midlife identity crisis, though, and how to fix it, let's look first at how we got here. The process of losing ourselves is a subtle one. It happens here a little and there a little until you wake up one day and realize how far you've actually drifted from where you thought you'd be. You can see that everything has changed and nothing is the same as it used to be. One of the biggest reasons this happens is that we spent many years playing specific roles in our life that become part of our identity. Being a parent, a spouse, a caregiver, employee, a leader, a church member, whatever it might be. When those things change or disappear, the question can easily become, well, who am I now? When we're no longer doing the things that once defined our places in life, then what? It can get especially complicated if you've been through some hard stuff and maybe picked up some unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as people-pleasing or codependency, or even suppressing your own needs to keep the peace. These things help in the short run, but they can really create a lot of confusion down the road. So when we arrive at these midlife natural transition points, we might have difficulty making decisions or feeling like we don't even belong anywhere anymore, or that we don't even know what our purpose is. These things don't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means that those things that once defined the roles you played in life and defined where you were and what you were supposed to be doing no longer exist, and you're at a transition point. This actually happened to me. Many years of our lives were defined by parenting super high stress situations with some very difficult kids who we love with all of our hearts. But the trauma and the drama were unrelenting. Not just for a little while, but daily for over 2 decades. It was so all-encompassing and all-consuming and required us to be all in and on our game at all times that it became our primary identity. Our bodies, minds, nervous systems, daily schedules and routines, and every detail of our life were wrapped up in survival and just getting through the day. Sometimes even just getting through the hour or the minute. That stuff leaves a mark for sure. And then all of a sudden, it ended. That was surreal in and of itself. We were so deeply entrenched in it that it felt like we'd been transported to another planet. My husband and I didn't recognize ourselves, certainly didn't recognize each other, or how much everything around us had actually changed. We were pretty shocked when we realized just how much time had passed and how different everything looked. It wasn't until some of the pressure and weight of what we had been through started to lift that we realized the very heavy toll it had taken on us. We also realized that all the typical things out there that people say are supposed to help get through this stuff weren't going to work for us. Things like take a vacation, hang out with your friends, go shopping, spend lots of money, take up a new hobby, don't stress so much. None of that was even relevant to us or to our lives, and we couldn't relate to it at all. We honestly had no idea where to even start. Which brings me to the 3 tips that I want to share with you today. These helped us get through that transition and get things back on track and prepared for our next chapter of life. The first was let the dust settle. Keep life status quo and do nothing new for a little while. If you've been through some really hard stuff, or if your identity was heavily tied to what you were doing and the role you were playing, coming out of that is going to take some time. Give it a while. Give yourself some time and space to adjust to a new way of living and being. Take some time to rest and recover and learn to breathe again. For us, it was a full year before we had our wits back about us, before we can even start to think about moving forward. It took that long to disconnect from the intensity of the previous 20 years and to even start to feel human again. It took even longer to trust that it would be safe for us to even have hopes and dreams of our own again, or to even focus on ourselves and our own lives. It also took time to adjust to stepping back and realizing that even if we don't like what's going on and we can see down the road a little further than our kids could in some cases, we didn't have to be at the forefront of it anymore. And this is now their time to learn from their lives. The second tip I have for you today is to plan for those big changes that need to be made. During that time of rest and recovery and decompressing is actually the time to start planning for some of the bigger changes that might lie ahead for you. Leaping too fast just because you can or because you need things to be different than they have been often leads to impulsive decisions that aren't fully researched or thought through, and that can create more problems than it solves. The best way to create a plan is to start looking at what you really want things to look like in your next chapter of life. More importantly, though, what do you want them to feel like? There are lots of different ways that things can look, but not all of them are going to feel the same. So focus on what is going to feel safe for me, what's going to feel peaceful, what's going to feel happy, what aligns with my values and what I believe my purpose in life is. If you can't answer those questions yet, don't leap. It's not the time yet. Once you can answer those questions, though, and you start to get some new ideas for the new direction of your life, then it's time to figure out what it's going to take to get you there. Do you want to travel the world? Awesome. How much money do you need to save up in order to make that happen? Or maybe you're in a situation where something has happened and you can't do the things that you used to anymore, either physically, mentally, or emotionally. But what can you do now? And what needs to happen in order for you to be successful at doing those new things? The most major thing for us is that we knew we wanted and needed to move to a new location. For a lot of reasons, we couldn't stay where we were, and we also couldn't just pick up and make that move happen. It required career changes, getting the house back into shape after years of excessive wear and tear from our darling kids, and outright neglect of things that we just couldn't keep up with while we were surviving. It also involved figuring out where we even wanted to be, and that couldn't happen until the career change happened and we knew where the primary job was. All of that took time, and not all of it lined up according to the timetable we wanted. But the first thing that was in my control and that I did was to clean out my closet, because it was something I could do. And so I got in there and I got rid of all the clutter and all the old clothes that were in there, the ones that I'd been keeping because I either really liked them, they were some of my favorites, and I really wanted to be able to wear them again. And then I realized that I had been holding on to some of them for years, and they were only taunting me and making me feel bad about myself. And so I grabbed them all together and I donated over 10 bags of stuff to charity. I cleared out my physical space, and I also cleared out my emotional space. And I ended up doing that project, the first one towards hitting our goal of wanting to move, a full year before the move actually happened. And that brings me to tip number 3, is to just roll with it. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. The person you were before doesn't exist anymore. And the person you're going to become hasn't emerged yet. It's going to take time and probably some experimentation with a lot of different things before you figure it out. So don't get stuck in the details. They're probably going to change about 10 million times anyway before you get to where you want to be. And one of the best ways, and also the most empowering things you can do, is to be open to figuring it out as you go. All you really need to know is the end goal of where you want to be, and then the big steps in between that need to happen in order to get you there. Once you get those things figured out, put the steps in order and start chipping away at them a little bit at a time. By doing that, you'll learn far more about yourself and what you want and where your strengths really lie than trying to control everything and have it all laid out before you even start. Let it unfold. Let it be whatever it's going to be. This middle part of life really is a fun time of discovery and rediscovery. No, we're not as young as we used to be. And maybe things got messy or you veered pretty far away from where you wanted to be. That's okay. It's part of the journey, and it happens to a lot of us. I'm also a firm believer that there are lessons to be learned from all of our experiences. So let go of control. Let it flow. And one of my favorites has become let go and let God lead. If that's a new concept for you, I promise that nothing will change or create more positive change than that in your life. If it's never been a part of your life, give it a try. Look into it. If you've stepped away or taken a break, or even if you've been hurt in the past by toxic teachings about God that aren't true, come back and come closer and find out for yourself who God really is. Find out if He's real, if He knows you, and what He truly thinks about you. I'll give you a little hint here. If you find anything less than absolute divine love and acceptance, you're looking in the wrong places. When you find those things, and learn to trust them. Let Him take control. Let Him direct the course of your life. I've learned that He is way better at figuring out all this stuff than I am. As I wrap up these tips, I want to remind you again that the rediscovery of who you are and where you're meant to be and what you're meant to be is a journey. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's a process of patience and small steps and curiosity and self-compassion. You're not lost. You're not broken. You're exactly where you need to be at this point in your life. If it feels like you're lost, or you're simply just drifting through life and going through the motions, it means that you're in the process of becoming, and hopefully in the process of healing as well. But with the right steps, you will find your way back to a new and improved, and also likely upgraded version of yourself. Figuring out who and what that looks like is all part of the process. Another big part of getting where we need to be is also about making sure that we understand all the stories that we tell ourselves, all those stories that happen in our heads along the way. Check out this video right over here to learn more about those things. I'll see you next time. Bye.